My name is Sarah, I'm 32, and nothing could have prepared me for what happened at my twins' funeral. Right there in front of everyone, my 7-year-old son blurted out a secret about what his grandma had been putting in their baby bottles. It shattered my world and changed my family forever. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true family drama and emotional courage stories. Grandma told me not to tell you what she puts in their bottles. That's what my 7-year-old son, Michael, said loud enough for the whole church to hear. His small voice sliced through the quiet like broken glass on marble. For a second, I thought I misheard him. I blinked, my throat dry, clutching the tissue in my hand until it tore in two. But when I turned to look at him, his wide eyes told me he meant every word. The room shifted. People stirred in their pews. Some gasped softly. Others leaned in, whispering behind raised hands. The pastor stumbled mid-sentence, his voice faltering before he cleared his throat and pressed on, though his eyes betrayed his unease. I felt 100 eyes burning into me, but the only thing I could see was the front of the church, the two small white coffins, side by side, covered in flowers. They were too small. They looked like toy chests instead of final resting places. My stomach knotted so tightly I thought I might collapse. Michael tugged at my sleeve again, as if nothing was wrong. Mom, did you hear me? Grandma said not to tell you. My breath caught in my chest. Not now, I whispered sharply, leaning down, trying to quiet him before he could say more. But it was too late. The words were already out. They were hovering over the coffins, circling the room like smoke. I looked toward my mother. She sat 4 rows up, her back straight, her pearls resting neatly against her black dress. She didn't flinch. She didn't look at me. She just stared straight ahead at the pastor, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her stillness scared me more than if she'd lashed out. Michael frowned. But you said always tell the truth. That stung. My chest tightened as tears burned behind my eyes. The people closest to us shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen while their ears strained for every word. I forced a small smile for him, though my lips shook. We'll talk later, sweetheart. Promise. He pouted but nodded, resting his head against my arm. His trust in me made my heart splinter. The pastor continued, his words about peace and eternal rest fading in and out like static. I couldn't focus. My mind was buzzing, tangled with memories I had ignored for too long. Nights when the twins wouldn't stop crying, and my mother swooped in with a tired sigh. Go rest, Sarah. I'll handle it. You need your strength. Mornings when I found them unusually quiet, their eyelids heavy, their breathing deep and strange. She always brushed it off. See? You just need to let me take over sometimes. Babies sense when you're stressed. I had believed her. Now, sitting in that pew with my boy's innocent words ringing in my ears, I wasn't so sure. Someone coughed behind me. Another voice whispered, "What did he say?" A second answered, "Something about bottles." The whispers spread like wildfire. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. Michael tugged again, his voice softer this time but still too loud in the silence. She said it helps them sleep. She said don't tell you because you'd worry too much. A woman across the aisle gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I closed my eyes, gripping Michael's hand tightly, my nails digging into his soft skin by accident. He flinched, and guilt stabbed through me. I loosened my hold immediately. Please, not now, I whispered. My voice cracked. He nodded reluctantly, his small face falling, his innocence shining through. He didn't know what he'd done. He didn't know what he'd revealed. The prayer began. Everyone lowered their heads. I bowed mine too, but I couldn't pray. My lips moved silently, my eyes burning, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I saw the twins again, red-faced and crying in their cribs. My mother walking in, taking them from my arms with that firm grip, muttering, "You'll spoil them holding them so much." I saw her smile when she brought them back, unnaturally quiet, heavy-eyed, their lips sticky with something I hadn't thought to question. My tears spilled then, hot and relentless. I wiped them quickly, but more came. I kept my head bowed, hiding my face, ashamed of the storm brewing inside me. The prayer ended. The pastor closed his book, his voice unsteady as he dismissed the service. The scrape of chairs filled the room as people stood, their condolences ready but their curiosity sharper. Hands touched my shoulder. "I'm so sorry for your loss. They're angels now." Their words rolled over me like waves I couldn't feel. Their eyes lingered too long, searching, questioning. Michael clung to my arm, his face buried against me. Across the room, my mother finally turned her head. For one brief moment, her eyes met mine, cold, sharp, unblinking. Then she turned away, lifting her chin as if none of this touched her. Something broke inside me then. This day was supposed to be about mourning, about laying my babies to rest. But now, it was more than that. It was the spark of something darker. And as I stood in that church, surrounded by whispers and pitying glances, I realized the funeral wasn't just the end of my twins' short lives. It was the beginning of a truth I couldn't ignore. The day everything changed. The church emptied slowly, the sound of footsteps echoing against the high walls. I stayed seated, my hands trembling against the polished wood of the pew. People drifted past me with polite nods, murmured condolences, and forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. But I knew what they were really carrying with them, the words of my son, replaying in their minds, twisting into stories before the day was even over. Michael clung to my arm as if he sensed the storm I was drowning in. His small hand pressed against mine, grounding me even as my whole body threatened to collapse under the weight of what he had said. "Mom," he whispered, his voice small but steady, "did I do something wrong?" My chest tightened. The innocence in his tone cut deeper than anything else. He wasn't guilty, he was confused. And yet the world would twist his truth into something unbearable if I wasn't careful. I bent down to his level, brushing his messy hair back from his forehead. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong." My voice cracked. "You just surprised me, that's all." His brow furrowed. "But Grandma said not to tell you. She said it was our little secret." Those words froze me. Our little secret. My stomach turned, bile rising in my throat. I forced a shaky breath, pulling him into my arms to hide the horror on my face. "Sometimes grown-ups ask kids to keep things quiet," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But that doesn't make it okay. You did the right thing, Michael. Always remember that, always." He nodded, though confusion still lingered in his eyes. Then, like a child who couldn't hold on to heaviness for long, he asked softly, "Can we go home now?" I wanted to. I wanted to run, escape, hide from the gazes still flicking toward me as people filed out. But before I could answer, a voice came from behind us. "Sarah." My heart dropped. I turned to see Pastor Williams standing there, his lined face full of sympathy, but beneath it, something else. Concern. Unasked questions. Hesitation. That was, he paused, searching for careful words. Unexpected. I swallowed hard. "He's just a child," I said quickly, the defensiveness in my tone sharper than I intended. "Of course," the pastor said gently, raising his hands. "Children sometimes repeat things they don't fully understand." His eyes softened, but they lingered on Michael. "But if you ever need to talk, my door is always open." The implication stung. He didn't believe it was just childish nonsense. He had heard the same words as everyone else, and his silence now carried weight heavier than his condolences. "Thank you," I murmured, forcing civility. But I turned away quickly, tightening my grip on Michael's hand as if I could shield him from the scrutiny of even a pastor. We walked down the aisle slowly, passing the two white coffins one last time. My knees almost buckled at the sight of them, but Michael tugged me onward, and somehow I kept walking. Outside, the crisp air hit my lungs like a slap. The sky was too blue, too bright for a day like this. People lingered in small clusters on the steps, whispering, pretending their words weren't about us. "Sarah." This time it was my cousin Anna, hurrying toward me, her heels clicking against the stone. She looked flustered, her eyes darting toward Michael, then back to me. "Don't let it get to you," she said quickly, almost in a rush. "Kids say things. People will forget." But the way her gaze avoided mine told me she didn't believe her own words. "Thank you," I muttered again, my throat burning. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. Anna hesitated as if she wanted to say more, but then pressed her lips together and touched my arm briefly before retreating. I guided Michael toward the car, keeping my head down, wishing I could fold us into invisibility. My mother stood near the steps, surrounded by acquaintances offering her sympathy, her mask of composure unshaken. When her eyes finally met mine, she gave the faintest shake of her head, as if warning me not to cause a scene. The audacity of it made my skin crawl. Michael looked up at me once we reached the car. "Why is everyone staring?" I forced a steady tone I didn't feel. "Because they're sad, honey. Sometimes people don't know how to act when they're sad." He accepted that answer, his young mind still innocent enough to believe me. But as I buckled him in, his next words nearly broke me. "Grandma said if I ever told, you'd be mad at me. But you're not, right?" I froze, my hands tightening on the seatbelt. Slowly, I forced myself to meet his eyes. "No, Michael. I could never be mad at you for telling me the truth." He gave a small smile, relief washing over his face, and leaned back in his seat. But inside me, fury simmered so hot I could barely breathe. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Around us, cars were pulling away, mourners heading back to their lives, leaving me stranded between grief and suspicion. The ride home was silent. Michael hummed softly to himself, tapping his shoes against the seat, blissfully unaware of the weight his words carried. My eyes stayed fixed on the road, but my mind spun in circles, replaying every moment, every detail, every strange night I had ignored. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Michael unbuckled quickly and ran inside, his energy unbroken. I sat there for a long moment, the engine ticking as it cooled, my hands trembling against the wheel. His confession replayed over and over, each word pressing deeper into my chest until it felt impossible to breathe. I knew one thing with painful clarity: Michael hadn't lied. And if his words were true, then nothing about my children's deaths could ever be the same again. I sat in the car long after Michael had disappeared inside, my fingers locked so tightly around the steering wheel that they ached. The quiet hum of the engine had died minutes ago, yet the air still vibrated with the echo of his words. My son hadn't lied, his innocence couldn't carry deceit. Which meant the truth had been hidden in plain sight, threaded through the days I had lived without noticing. I finally forced myself out, the slam of the door sounding louder than it should have. Each step up the walkway felt heavy, as though the ground itself resisted me. When I opened the front door, Michael's laughter drifted from the living room. He had already found his toys, constructing some imagined world where danger didn't exist. I envied him. I didn't join him. Instead, I moved quietly past, into the kitchen. The walls seemed to close in, the hum of the refrigerator unusually loud. I leaned against the counter, forcing my memory to rewind, dragging me back through months I had tried not to relive. The first sign should have been the nights. The restless tossing, the sudden cries. Michael would wake screaming, saying someone was in his room. I had chalked it up to nightmares, shadows stretching into monsters. I remember sitting by his bed, rubbing his back, whispering reassurances until his eyes finally drooped shut. "No one's here, sweetheart. You're safe." But he hadn't felt safe. And I, blind, exhausted, had believed in the easier lie. I turned on the faucet, splashing cold water onto my face, hoping the shock would pull me out of the spiral. It didn't. Memories only sharpened. There were times when Michael clung too tightly to my side whenever my mother visited. I thought it was shyness, the kind that grows between children and adults who don't see each other every day. But now it looked different in my mind. His tiny fingers curling around my arm like chains, his body stiff when she tried to hug him. I pressed my palms into the counter, my chest heaving. A knock on the kitchen door startled me so violently I nearly screamed. It was Anna again, standing on the back porch, her coat pulled tight around her shoulders. Her eyes darted toward the living room before settling on me. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded, stepping aside. She slipped inside and shut the door quickly, as though afraid the air outside might overhear us. Her expression was uneasy, and that alone told me she hadn't just come to check in. "I shouldn't even be here," she whispered. "But Sarah, I need to ask." What did Michael mean back there? I stiffened. He's a child. You know how they say things. No, she interrupted, shaking her head. That wasn't just a child talking. He sounded certain. Her words were gentle, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. She believed him too. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, my legs too weak to hold me up. Anna hesitated before sitting across from me. I don't know everything, she continued cautiously. But I noticed things too, little things. The way he tensed up around her. How quiet he became whenever she was near. I told myself I was imagining it. Her admission sent a shiver through me. So it wasn't just me, I murmured. Anna's eyes filled with sympathy, but also guilt. No. And I should have said something sooner. I pressed my hands to my temples, the room spinning. If what he said is true, then I missed every single warning. Every cry for help. Anna leaned forward. You were grieving, Sarah. We both were. No one thinks clearly in the middle of loss. But her words felt hollow. Excuses wouldn't erase the truth that was now unraveling before me. From the living room, Michael's voice carried as he made his toy figures talk to each other. His innocent chatter clashed with the heavy silence between Anna and me. I need to know everything, I whispered fiercely. Every memory, every look, every time you noticed something. Because if I piece this together, maybe I'll see the truth clearly. Anna hesitated but then nodded. There was one night, about a month ago. I came by late to drop off some papers. Your mom was here. I heard Michael crying from the hallway, but when I stepped closer, she snapped at me, told me he was just tired and needed discipline. The way she said it, it didn't sit right. My stomach twisted. I had been out that night, working late. I hadn't known anything else. I pushed, my voice shaking. Anna swallowed. At the last family dinner, Michael spilled juice. Just a small accident. Your mom's face, Sarah, I'll never forget it. She didn't scold him like a normal grandma would. She froze. Like she was afraid he'd say something right there at the table. A chill swept through me. The puzzle pieces clicked together, jagged and cruel. I buried my face in my hands, fighting back tears. How did I not see it? Anna reached across the table, squeezing my wrist. Because you trusted her. We all did. The words hung heavy between us. Suddenly Michael called out, Mom, look. He ran into the kitchen holding a crooked tower of blocks, his smile wide, his eyes shining. For a moment, the storm inside me quieted. I forced a smile and clapped softly. That's amazing, sweetheart. He beamed and ran back to his game. Anna's voice lowered to a whisper. What are you going to do? I stared at the doorway Michael had just run through, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fury. First, I said quietly, I'm going to remember every single sign. Every night, every glance, every word. And then, my voice cracked, but I steadied it. I'll make sure no one doubts him again. The conviction in my tone startled even me. Anna's eyes searched mine, then she nodded slowly. Then you're stronger than I am. Because I don't know if I'd survive this. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was breaking apart, each memory slicing me open. But there was no other choice now. As Anna left later that evening, I stood by the window, staring into the darkening sky. One by one, the signs returned to me, every missed clue, every silenced instinct. They lined up in my mind, a trail I couldn't ignore anymore. Michael's innocent confession had cracked something open. And now, tracing back the signs, I finally saw the truth that had been staring at me all along. The sky outside the window was almost black now, clouds pressing low, swallowing the last streaks of color. I stood frozen, my reflection faint in the glass, my thoughts circling in tighter and tighter loops. Michael's laughter echoed faintly from the living room, light and unburdened, while inside me, something dangerous kept building. I had spent hours stitching together every sign, every whisper of unease, and now the truth pulsed beneath my skin like a fever. My hands trembled against the windowsill. There was only so much one heart could hold before it cracked. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped me from my spiral. Headlights swept across the walls. My chest constricted as I recognized the familiar shape of my mother's sedan. Not tonight. My breath hitched, panic and fury colliding in my chest. She hadn't called, hadn't warned me, and I wasn't ready. Not after what Michael had said. Not after what Anna had confirmed. The front door opened before I could even move. Her voice carried, calm and steady, as though she had every right to be here. Sarah. Michael jumped up, racing toward her before I could stop him. My body moved on instinct. I intercepted him halfway, scooping him into my arms. His small arms wrapped around my neck, but he didn't complain. He didn't even ask why I had stopped him. His silence spoke louder than words. My mother stepped into the living room, her smile faltering for just a second when she saw the way I clutched him. "You didn't answer my calls," she said, her tone tinged with reproach. "I didn't hear them," I lied flatly. The air thickened instantly. She placed her purse on the table, her eyes flicking between me and Michael. "Is something wrong?" "Wrong." The word thudded against my ribs. Everything was wrong. I lowered Michael slowly, whispering, "Go play in your room for a little while, okay?" He nodded, hesitant, before scurrying down the hallway. I waited until his door clicked shut before I turned back to her. "Yes," I said, my voice low but shaking. "Something is very wrong." She blinked, her face carefully composed. "What are you talking about?" I took a step forward. My body was trembling, but the words surged out of me. "Michael told me. He told me everything." For the first time, her composure cracked. Her lips parted, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. "He's a child," she said quickly. "Children make things up. You know that." No, my voice cut sharp, slicing through her denial. "Not Michael. Not this time." She drew in a slow breath, smoothing her features, but her hands twitched where they rested on the counter. "Sarah, you're letting grief cloud your judgment. You've been under so much pressure, and now you're hearing stories." "Don't," I snapped, my own voice shocking me with its strength. "Don't you dare turn this on me." The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint patter of Michael's blocks hitting the floor in his room. My pulse thundered in my ears. She tilted her head, her expression sliding into something I'd seen too many times before, a mask of control, of superiority. "You think you know the truth, but you don't. You've always been too emotional, Sarah. Always jumping to conclusions." Something inside me snapped. The years of quiet manipulation, the subtle digs, the way she made me feel small, it all erupted. "I'm not jumping to anything." My fists clenched at my sides. I should have seen it sooner. The way he clings to me when you're near. The way his laughter dies the moment you walk in the room. He was too afraid to tell me, but he told me now. And I believe him. Her face hardened, the mask slipping into something colder. "You'll ruin everything if you keep talking like this." The words chilled me, but also ignited a fire in my chest. "The only thing ruined here is trust," I spat. "You were supposed to protect him. To love him. And instead my voice broke, fury and sorrow tangling until I could hardly breathe." Her eyes darted toward Michael's room. Lowering her voice, she hissed, "Do you want him to hear this? Do you want to frighten him?" The hypocrisy of it twisted my stomach. "You already did that," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. She took a step closer, her perfume sharp in the air between us. "You don't know what you're saying. You'll regret this. One day, you'll thank me for keeping things together." The arrogance of it was unbearable. My chest tightened, and for the first time in my life, I felt no trace of fear of her. Only rage. I straightened, my voice steady now. "No. One day, Michael will thank me for finally choosing him over you." Her expression froze, shock flashing across her face. The air vibrated with tension, neither of us moving, both waiting for the other to break first. My hands shook, but my resolve held. Every memory, every sign I had ignored, crashed down on me until standing still felt impossible. The sound of Michael's door creaking open sliced through the silence. He peeked out, his eyes wide, sensing the storm. I swallowed hard, softening my tone for him. "Go back in your room, sweetheart. I'll be there soon." He nodded quickly, retreating. When the door closed again, I turned back to her. My voice trembled but didn't falter. This ends now. Whatever grip you think you have on us, it's over. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. You think you're strong enough for that? You've never been without me. Her words should have cut, but instead, they fueled me. I lifted my chin, meeting her gaze squarely. Watch me. The finality in my tone startled even me. The storm that had been building inside me finally broke, not in screams or chaos, but in the simple, undeniable certainty that I was done being silent. This was my breaking point. And there was no turning back. The words still echoed in the air between us, watch me. They had left my mouth with a force I didn't know I possessed, and yet, as the silence stretched, the weight of them pressed down on my chest like iron. My mother's stare hardened. She didn't move, but I could feel the fury vibrating beneath her calm surface, a volcano threatening to erupt. I braced myself, but what came instead was worse than I imagined. You think truth is freedom, she said quietly, her voice low and sharp. But truth has consequences, Sarah. Heavy ones. Do you even understand what you're carrying now? Her words slipped into the cracks of my resolve, twisting, pressing. For a heartbeat, doubt clawed at me. But then I thought of Michael, his little voice, the tremor in his hands when he'd whispered his secret. I thought of the fear in his eyes every time she entered the room. I understand more than you think, I said, though my throat felt dry as sand. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. No. You don't. You're naive enough to believe that dragging things into the light will fix them. But sometimes the truth destroys more than it saves. Families collapse. Trust evaporates. And children, she paused deliberately. Children lose everything. Her meaning struck hard, sharp and merciless. My hands clenched until my nails dug into my palms. You already destroyed that trust, I whispered, my voice trembling with both rage and sorrow. For the first time, her mask slipped entirely. Her jaw tightened, her lips thinning, her eyes gleaming with something I didn't want to name. I did what I had to, she said finally. You'll see one day. I carried this burden so you wouldn't have to. The audacity of it left me breathless. My vision blurred with unshed tears. Don't you dare call it a burden, I snapped. Michael is not a burden. Protecting him is not a burden. It's my duty. And I won't let you twist that into some kind of sacrifice you think makes you noble. Her eyes flicked away for the briefest moment, and in that tiny lapse, I saw it, guilt, raw and unhidden. My stomach turned. The silence between us thickened again, but this time, it wasn't empty. It was heavy, suffocating, every unsaid truth pressing into the walls until the house itself seemed to strain beneath it. Then, from the hallway, the soft shuffle of small feet broke through. Michael stood there, his teddy bear dangling from one hand, his wide eyes darting between us. Mommy. His voice was small, uncertain. I forced a smile, my body softening instantly as I crouched to his level. It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to your room. I'll tuck you in soon. But he didn't move. His little face crumpled, torn between fear and courage. Finally, in a shaky whisper, he said, I don't like when she's here. The room froze. My breath caught, and I glanced at my mother. Her face paled, her eyes widening just enough for me to see the fracture in her armor. Michael, she began, her tone artificially sweet, you don't mean that. Yes, I do. His voice cracked, louder this time. His teddy bear hit the floor as his small fists clenched at his sides. I don't like it when you come here. You make everything scary. The words sliced through the air, raw and unfiltered. My heart ached for him, but at the same time, I felt a strange relief it wasn't just me anymore. His truth had surfaced, unshakable, undeniable. Tears pricked my eyes as I pulled him into my arms. He clung to me fiercely, his little body trembling against mine. My mother's face twisted, anger and shock colliding. Sarah, she hissed, you're letting him poison himself with lies. You're feeding into his delusions. Stop. My voice thundered louder than I ever thought it could. The walls seemed to tremble with it. Don't you dare call his truth a lie. Michael buried his face in my shoulder, and I stroked his hair, my own tears spilling freely now. The weight of truth had shifted. It was no longer mine alone to carry. Michael had spoken, and once released, there was no silencing it. My mother straightened, her expression calcifying into cold defiance. If you go down this path, Sarah, you'll regret it. You'll lose me. You'll lose everything I've built for you. I tightened my hold on Michael. If losing you means keeping him safe, then that's not a loss. That's freedom. For a moment, she just stared at me, as if she didn't recognize me anymore. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps the daughter who once bowed to her control was gone. Her silence stretched, then with a sharp turn, she grabbed her purse from the table. You'll regret this, she said again, her voice colder than ever. The door slammed behind her, rattling the frames on the walls. I stood there, holding Michael, my body shaking from the storm that had just passed. My chest heaved, my breath uneven, but my grip on him was steady. He whispered into my shoulder, "Is she gone?" "Yes," I breathed, pressing a kiss to his hair. "She's gone." The words tasted bittersweet. Relief washed over me, but so did something heavier. This was only the beginning. The truth had been spoken, but truth was not light, it was weight. A weight that I now carried, with Michael pressed against me like the only thing keeping me from shattering. I lowered myself onto the couch, holding him close until his breathing softened, his small body relaxing against mine. His trust, so fragile and precious, anchored me. The house was quiet again, but the silence was different now. It wasn't the silence of denial or fear. It was the silence that followed an earthquake, when the ground was still trembling beneath the surface. And as I sat there, rocking him gently, I realized something. The truth hadn't just changed me. It had bound me to it, inescapably, permanently. There was no going back.